Hi humans, my name is Brittany and today I'm going to be talking about meal kit delivery services. If that sounds interesting to you, stick around while I ruin any chance I probably had at getting sponsorships on this channel. Before we get started, I feel like it'll be helpful to discuss meal kit delivery services in general and then do a comparison of two brands that I hear most popularly advertised on this platform. So, what are meal kit delivery services and why do I give a shit? Meal kit delivery services have gotten popular in the last several years, I think because of advertisements on YouTube and other platforms. And the kind that we're going to be talking about today are specifically kit delivery services, which will provide a recipe card and a set of ingredients for a given number of meals in a week, as opposed to other styles of meal kit delivery services, which might send actually like prepared meals or other styles, which would maybe be covered in a later video. And if you don't want to hear all of my rambling and would prefer to just skip to my conclusions, I'll try to put a time card on the screen or in the description so you can just go forward straight to that if that's better for you. So, what are the pros of this type of service? I think the largest pro that people find for this type of service is that it makes cooking a bit easier for a few meals in a week. It's a chore that a lot of people don't enjoy that much, and so it just like reduces the burden for a little bit of time per week on a given chore. And I think that's like the biggest pull. Something I've also found to be super helpful with this is it's a nice way to like introduce yourself into cooking if you aren't someone that is like particularly good at cooking. Since I started like using services like this in the past, have found it to be way less daunting to try and like actually make food in the kitchen. There are other promises that these types of services will claim, like reduced food waste and like cost savings, but we'll dive more into some of those at a later time. They're not necessarily like the pull that I've found to be the like primary reason to purchase these kits, but are things that they say that they do as well. Okay, now that we've talked about the pros, what are the cons? While I've noticed that cost savings has been a big marketing push for products like these, it's my guess that you likely won't save money by using a product like this. We'll dive into it more in the full review once I've actually like checked out the services, done more stuff, and like kind of analyzed cost a little bit. But my guess is that unless you're eating takeout consistently and constantly ordering delivery, you're more likely to spend additional money on food and not save money by using a service like this. To really dive into whether or not these services are worth anyone's money, I'm going to review two of the most popular brands I see advertised on this platform, HelloFresh and EveryPlate. Because I love HelloFresh too, sure.
Tell me about how HelloFresh can help you meet your goals. Oh yeah, that's right. HelloFresh offers veggie, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to help you stick to your goals. That we're good. You can lose that little bit of winter weight you maybe put on. Chris!
We're making a chicken sausage penne with EveryPlate. This is everything that comes in our meal kit.
Today's video also has a sponsor, and today's sponsor is HelloFresh. Roll the tape. Today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh.
I love it. Wait, you telling me that the treasure was this video's sponsor the whole time?
Hi, it's Admiral Kenny here to let you know that today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit delivery service that allows you to try it.
EveryPlate is the sponsor of today's video, and they are truly the best value meal kit in America. I know because I've tried other ones and they are way too expensive, but
These are both brands which I see heavily advertised on YouTube and which I have personally bought from without incentive because at the time of writing the script and filming this, no one pays me for this type of discussion. To really get a good view of whether or not these services are worth anyone's money, I'm going to try and approach this in a pretty formulaic way and not consider as much my previous experience with the services. And so I'm going to be looking at a few metrics and have kind of like a set approach. I will be buying one meal kit from each of these services. I'll be getting 3 meals per service. I'll do one the first week and then more the second week, the second box the second week. And within the boxes, I'm going to get a vegetarian meal, a standard meal, and a premium meal to get kind of a full view of all of the products which might be offered by these services. I'll be going through and looking at a specific set of metrics. Specifically, I'm going to be paying attention to the website experience, the packaging, the kitchen experience, how the cooking is, are the recipe cards easy to follow, etc. The taste of the meals, since obviously that's going to be a big component of whether or not it feels worth it. And finally, potentially most importantly, I'm going to go over the cost of these services. How do they stack up against each other? What does that look like on a price per meal basis? And yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the actual review. When putting in my initial order with HelloFresh, the first thing to note about the website is that there's a ton of shit on it. Shit being a synonym for items of food and not literal shit here. There are so many meals, it was almost overwhelming. And there was an option to do an insane amount of add-ons, which definitely added to that sensation. Theoretically, from the website, it seems totally possible to do almost all of your grocery shopping with HelloFresh alone and not need to go to a grocery store at all. The navigation was pretty easy and made it easy to filter for specific criteria. One con from the website that I noticed is that it was not immediately apparent that what the cost of the box would be. Okay, redo that sentence. The navigation was pretty easy and made it easy to filter for specific criteria. One con from the website that I noticed was that it was not immediately apparent what the cost of the box would be as I was putting it together. It didn't take super long to find the info, but it's something worth bringing up because I felt like the other service did a better job in that way. Major notes: good website, lots of stuff, easy filtering. Cons: maybe a bit overwhelming and could have been a bit more transparent about the price. For EveryPlate, the website experience was similar in a lot of ways. The ways that the meal cards are presented looks basically the same, and they also make it easy to get more info about the meals that you're picking. It has way less product, so it wouldn't be as easy to do literally all of your grocery shopping on just that website, but it made it easier to not feel overwhelmed with options. I found the navigation easy. One thing that came up that was probably just a me issue is that I accidentally ended up selecting 3 premium meals on my initial selection because the indicator for the premium meal was maybe not as obvious as it could have been. But on a positive note, I felt like they did a very good job of making the prices easy to see at the top of the screen, so I was immediately aware of it and could fix it quickly. Major notes: not too much product, so less likely to overspend. It was easy to navigate, and price transparency. Cons: could do a better job about clearly indicating the premium status of more expensive meals. And packaging. This is where the first major difference was made clear between the two services. HelloFresh packages each meal individually, excluding meat in the main meal packaging, so upon originally opening the box, you could really pull out each individual meal and confirm that everything in the shipment was right. EveryPlate had a different style of packaging where all of the ingredients were in a little box together, again excluding meat. You could confirm that all of the meals were right by checking the recipe cards, but all of the ingredients were packaged as a group, which we'll get more into in like literally 1 second. So once we get into the recipe and ease of cooking, immediately the difference in packaging makes an impact on that experience, especially for the first meal. I'll show a video from my first meal from each service so you can see how long setup takes, and if editing Brittany is feeling fancy or competent, I'll try to sneak a timer in the corner, but no promises. In case it wasn't super obvious, the difference in packaging did genuinely make a difference in the preliminary setup time. This wasn't as big of a deal by the third day because the only remaining ingredients were from the last meal, but on the first day, there was a little higher mental burden on just making sure I had what I needed from the kit, not even including the additional things like butter that I needed to be sure to get out. It's nitpicky and not actually a big deal, but when directly comparing the two kits, it really stands out. The recipe cards are very similar. Info for both includes meal prep and cook time as well as caloric information. HelloFresh was again slightly better in the recipe cards for two reasons in particular. The ingredients list included the actual quantity and volumes for the ingredients included in the kit. This is just a nice feature, but it makes it easy to recreate the meals that you enjoyed in the future, but obviously isn't required for the kit to be successful on its own. And second, the list of additional supplies and ingredients that are not included with the kit, but needed, are on the back of the recipe card with the rest of the actual recipe. This isn't a huge list, but will include things like butter, sugar, oil, egg, etc. for both services. This layout difference makes the act of cooking a little easier because you don't need to flip the card around when adding the additional ingredients to the meal to check on quantities. In the case of EveryPlate, that info is on the front of the card, so you may find yourself flipping the card around a few times, which can get annoying. Other than those differences, the recipe style was similar, and I would say both services had the recipes set up in a way that felt easy for people who don't spend as much time in the kitchen to follow. I would potentially advise that you read the full recipe before getting started, but that's true for most recipes when you've got multiple things going on at once. Overall, both were easy enough, definitely easier than me just wrestling through my fridge, but HelloFresh had a little bit of a boost with a couple details that pulled it in the lead here. And finally, taste, one of the most important factors. And so for the first meal of each kit, I went for a vegetarian option. For HelloFresh, this specifically meant a vegan meal, which turned out to be absolutely lovely. I think typically when I think of like vegan meals, I think of meals which are just like, I don't know, I think of a lot of like Thai food and Asian food where like tofu is a pretty normal substitute. This is something which like you could totally imagine it having meat in it and was instead a vegetarian option or a vegan option. I think oftentimes people will fall in the trap of making that less flavorful for some reason, but I did not find that HelloFresh fell into this trap at all. It was absolutely delicious, super flavorful. I saved a recipe card so I can make this one again. Like, loved it. Was great. For EveryPlate, I had a vegetarian pizza, which was also delicious. Also, I should say that this one probably needs to get bonus points because at the time that I was cooking it, I had a puppy in my house and was very distracted and for sure messed up on a few steps and still ended up having a delicious final product. So the fact that the cute little angel baby that I had in my house that was the most distracting little being didn't mess with my capacity to get a good meal out was a big win, I think, for that company. The standard meal for each of these was probably the easiest for the final comparison because both were pork-based and like very similar. I thought that they were super comparable meals. I would say that honestly, I actually wouldn't be able to tell the difference on which meal was which just by the pictures. The only reason I know which of these falls into like their category is because I still have the meal cards. Both of them tasted great. I would say I wish for the EveryPlate one, the veggie serving had been a bit bigger. I think that could have been a little bit more robust, but I would say both were delicious. And the sauces for both were like absolute game changers. It made the meal on both. And finally, premium. This is the type of meal that I would never actually buy on my own because it's just like so much more expensive. But I've got to say, HelloFresh was phenomenal. Like both meals were good, but HelloFresh easily took the cake. We'll talk about it more in the cost section because obviously that's another factor to consider. But the meal itself was delicious. The serving was huge. Everything about the meal screamed premium, and so it totally felt fair to spend extra money on. Having shrimp and steak in a meal is luxurious in a way that like I would not normally do, but I did really appreciate. And I would say I am not someone that often cooks beef or like steak, and so I was pretty nervous to spend that much money on food that I was not sure I could make well, and that it was delicious. It It made me feel like I could actually make steak in my normal life, which is really exciting. So gotta give it to HelloFresh for that one. It was amazing. The EveryPlate one was still a good meal, but it felt like much more similar to the standard meal, which isn't great when you're spending additional money. I think there was a clear difference in HelloFresh between a premium meal and a standard. Like the level was different. It was very clearly the premium meal. With EveryPlate, they felt kind of comparable, so it wasn't as like, I didn't feel as comfortable spending more money on it. The meals tasted like equally good. I wouldn't spend more money on it again in the future. And I would say the serving size felt a little small. Like if they could have beefed it up a little bit, no pun intended, even with just adding additional vegetables or carb, I think that would have been a big help, because I ended up leaving the meal actually feeling a little hungry, which I think is a for sure no if you're spending money on premium. I would say it's good, but it didn't really live up to the premium status in the way that I think that I would have hoped. Let's get into cost. I feel like I've been really saying nice things about HelloFresh, especially in the last section, and maybe dogging on EveryPlate a little bit, but this section is for sure where that's gonna flip. HelloFresh is notably more expensive for a similar type of service. For this meal, for the meals that I did for this video, I spent $90 for a HelloFresh box as opposed to $60 for the EveryPlate box. And as I mentioned when I was first filming this, I accidentally added 3 premium meals into my EveryPlate box, and it still only added up to $75. Only in this case is obviously just a comparison between HelloFresh and EveryPlate, because for 1 premium meal and 2 regular meals at HelloFresh, I spent $90, where I could have gotten 3 premium meals from EveryPlate and spent $15 less overall. That's a significant difference in like the ratios. And then you think there's a $30 difference in the same ratio of premium to regular. That's huge. I've used both of these services long enough that I'm not getting the deals anymore. And so with that math, my HelloFresh box in a week for just 3 regular meals would be about $70. My EveryPlate box would be about $50. If you bought a box a week, like every week for a month, you would spend $80 more on HelloFresh, which is like not even the total amount. That's just the difference between the services. That is a ton of money when some of the marketing for these services is about cost savings. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things that I could spend $80 on beyond just making my meals a little bit easier in the week. I've gone through my major notes and I want to summarize my thoughts in a mostly coherent way now. Also, I've changed and taken off my glasses because it's a different day. Just roll with it. In my opinion, the food quality between the 2 services is really comparable. The primary difference is actually in convenience, where HelloFresh is like significantly more convenient than EveryPlate, as it should be for the increased price. If both services costed the same amount, I would say HelloFresh was a definite winner given how much more convenient the product is. But given the price difference, I think which service you're going to prefer is going to be dependent on like what matters most to you. For me personally, the cost difference is significant enough that I would probably lean towards EveryPlate as a more standard use, and HelloFresh as like a more extravagant use case, but maybe convenience is a bigger factor for you as an individual and you would prefer that HelloFresh convenience factor. I think where both kits really shine, and like the service in general is great, is in spices and sauces. You're able to actually try out new meals and enjoy things with those particular spices and sauces without needing to buy whole containers that would cost a lot more money. So when they discuss cost savings, I think it's most related to these factors and not necessarily other ingredients. Now that I've said enough nice things, one thing I want to highlight is cost for both of these services. I've heard a lot of these brands market as being budget friendly or helping with savings overall, and I just don't agree with that in most circumstances. Unless you're someone who is eating takeout really consistently, you're probably going to end up spending more on food, not less, by using a service like this. I didn't research it, so I can't say definitively that the individual meals would cost less or more if you did the groceries bought version as opposed to the version bought with one of these kits. But I can say that my grocery spending went up in every week that I used this service, or my overall food spending went up. For reference, I probably spend $80 to $100 per week on average on my groceries. And with this service, at most, being very generous, I maybe saved $20 a week on my overall grocery bill because I still had to purchase the bulk of my ingredients from the store. That is for 7 breakfasts and 8 meals that weren't covered by these kits. And that doesn't even consider snacks and other things that I might want to purchase and consume over the week. That means at minimum per week, I'll be adding $30 to my overall food spending and up to $50. That in a month can be between $120 and $200 based on my napkin math. I just wanted to flag this and emphasize this point because I think often I hear these products marketed as something that are good for people that are on a budget. And I feel like if you're someone that's really trying to cut cost or be mindful of your spending, this is not the type of service that is going to be helpful to you. I think if you have a good expendable income, there's a lot of pros to services like this, but I wouldn't feel good promoting this type of product as something that's going to help you save money. I just don't think it does that. And honestly, even if you have a really big expendable income, adding this into your weekly routine maybe isn't something I would recommend, though I think that there's benefit to doing it on occasion. I think these are both great products for convenient, and that, rather than cost saving, should be how it's promoted. I would venture to say that you could probably even get delivery once a week or takeout once a week and maybe still spend about the same amount overall on your food as you would if you use a service like this. I say that fully speculatively because I didn't calculate it out and I don't know for sure. It's also important to note that there's a shipping fee, which obviously they don't talk about in the marketing, and does inflate the price per meal. So be aware. Another side note for anyone that's being money conscious at the moment, this is a subscription service, so it's important to be really on top of making sure to cancel boxes when you don't want them. I even accidentally ended up with a box unintentionally because I went out of town and forgot to cancel for the week. So that's not super helpful if you're trying to be mindful of your spending. And while there is a bit of leeway, while you can kind of do it a few weeks ahead of time, EveryPlate in particular, I think you can only go about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time to cancel. So you have to make sure to continually go on the website and opt out. Okay, final thoughts. So what would I recommend? While I harped on both of these services because some of the marketing feels a little disingenuous and that irks me, I would actually say that both of these products are fine. Fine to good, even. I would absolutely recommend that you try out the services during their promotional periods. Both of them are actually phenomenal deals when you're in the window before you're just a regular customer. And I think you can ignore my rants about money for a good deal. I enjoyed both weeks that I purchased food from them, and I'm probably going to do it again. It's really nice sometimes after a long day at work to come home and know exactly what you're going to be making and know that it's easier than needing to think of the whole thing yourself and just do all of the hard work. I think EveryPlate is a good option if you're working on being a little bit more mindful of your money but want the extra convenience factor. I think HelloFresh is a better option if maybe you have specific dietary restrictions or you just have enough expendable income that extra boost of convenience is worth it for you. I wouldn't recommend premium for either of them because the cost is crazy unless you're desperate to try and impress somebody. Then I would recommend that shrimp and steak meal because that was wow. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. If you did, maybe toss it a like and subscribe. I'm plotting more videos like this so I can continue to just ruin any chance I might have at getting any of the major sponsorships that are available on this platform. That's all I've got for you. See you in the next one.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date. You're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.